What is up, guys? Welcome to another video, and today we are back on Nfs2015 and we are going to talk about whether Nfs2015 was a success. So I've kind of been meaning to do kind of like an end of life cycle review for a very long time. I didn't really want to do it last year even though updates stopped, because I'm still playing this game, believe it or not. I feel like I'm one of the very few people that will still come back to this game, you know, once every week or so, and you know, I'll still play Nfs2015 every now and then. So this isn't going to be the only video I do talking about if like Nfs was a success or not. I'm going to do one more talking about, you know, the life cycle of the game and if the game was good in its life cycle, but this one's more going to be about, was it a success in terms of, you know, the series and where it was trying to go. Now obviously this is a very subjective thing. I can imagine I'm going to get a lot of angry comments in this video, but I'm going to talk about it from my perspective at least, and we're just going to go from there really. So it was pretty obvious with all the kind of pre-release material we got with Nfs2015 that they were trying to go back to the underground style of things. They were trying to go back to tuner culture, and in terms of that, I think they did really well. That's one of the things this game did really well for me. One of the game's main strong points was the fact that, well, like, this is pretty much Underground 3 in 2015 form. This couldn't be any more like Underground, even if it tried. It's all at night, the cops are pretty much non-existent, which we'll talk about later. Customization made a huge return. It was the closest we're probably ever gonna get to Underground 3, which for me, that's completely fine. So I think in terms of, you know, what going back to what made Need for Speed so popular in the first place, the game did a really good job of that. It's definitely kind of paved the way for future games as such, and I think in that regard this game was definitely a success. Now one thing I want to quickly touch on, and this is a milked subject at this point, so many people have talked about this, but I want to talk about the physics and the cops. So the physics is definitely something which is not to everyone's liking, and trust me, if you're a YouTuber or even if you're on the internet period and you've been in the Need for Speed community for longer than a year, you will know that not everyone liked the physics. Certain cars are like this Huracan you can see I'm driving right now, are really easy to drive. This Huracan is one of the easiest cars to drive in my opinion. This is full drift, and obviously because I have so... That wasn't meant to happen. And obviously because I have so much game time, that kind of helps as well. I can really control this Huracan. I can make it switch directions like that whenever I want. It's one of those cars that I've kind of mastered in this game really. And there is a select few cars that are like this. For example, the Hot Rod, the RSR, I think even the Mustang and the 240Z are up there. And then obviously you can tune pretty much any car to get to a drivable like standing. For example, my Evo was one, R32 was one. There's a lot of cars you can tune in this game to get to that point, but obviously you shouldn't need to do that. It should be, you know, available out of the gate, you know, it should be working. And I think that was what a lot of people's issues were. A lot of the casuals that play the game don't want to tune cars and don't want to, you know, get in depth with the customization. They just want to use the master slider and they want to be done with it. And I think that's where this game really fell. Unless you sink hours and hours and hours into this, you A, can't really be competitive, and B, you're gonna just struggle as a whole really. Not only that, but that mixed with netcode issues, which for me is the biggest issue with this game, which we'll talk about in a minute, make the multiplayer almost near on impossible, and considering that this is an always online game, that's not very good. Now for me, the physics weren't my biggest issue, nor was the customization. My biggest issue with this game, quite easily, is the netcode. So if you didn't know what I'm talking about, if you go onto an online lobby, there'll be certain situations where it'll look like you hit people on your screen, but you know that they haven't hit you, and basically it's just the hitboxes around the cars are very weird. Again, this is another kind of long-winded topic. Everyone's talked about this, you know, everyone knows the hitboxes are fucked, everyone knows the netcode's messed up, everyone knows that you can't go into speedless and just have a peaceful time in there, because there's either going to be ramming. Speedless was kind of poorly done as well. No collisions mode wasn't in there. You couldn't set up private matches. There's all bunch of things which Speedless were missing on. But hands down, the biggest problem for me in Speedless was the fact that I couldn't you know, race without being rammed, or even if I didn't ram someone on my screen, it would still look like they were rammed on their screen. That was the biggest issue for me. Now, there's obviously little glitches here and there which do become a problem. For example, when the car drags to the side sometimes during drifts, when the manual transmission for sometimes doesn't want to downshift. There's issues where speedless will freeze and you'll just be in a constant like loading screen in speedless. That's been a common thing. Sometimes you'll get an infinite crash cam, and to be honest, crash cams aren't really something which I wanted in the first place in this game. The fact you have to have drift tendencies in you know, your tunes, otherwise you're just not going to be competitive. It's a whole bunch of things I can say with this game which aren't perfect and need to be fixed. But for me, what really saves this game is where it's come from. In Rivals, the physics were still not great. You'd still have the problem where the car would drag to the side every now and then. If you haven't played Rivals, go back. I promise you that is a thing. I've been playing a lot of Need for Speed Edge, and I've had that exact issue where the car will just drag to the side like it does in Need for Speed 2015, and you'll just lose all control of the car. And that's been a prominent issue in Edge and Rivals. You know, in Rivals there was no manual transmission, there was no speed list, there was none of that. There was no story mode, there was no prestige mode, there was no Eddie's challenge, there was no free updates. You know, all the DLC we got for that game was car DLC. It was disgustingly, you know, milked car DLC. Like, you'd have to pay for the racer DLC once and then pay for the cop DLC another time. It was awfully managed, awfully managed. And coming from that game to this, where things have got a lot better in my eyes, you know, from what the Need for Speed series was going into, and now what the Need for Speed series is going into from there, I've got to say, this game, for me at least, has been a huge success. I feel like a lot of people who judge this game and say it was a complete failure didn't play Rivals, or didn't play it in its, you know, in its life cycle. They didn't play Rivals when that game was truly alive, and we didn't even know that Need for Speed 2015 was coming. And if you're like me, and you did play Rivals when it was coming out, this game is head and shoulders better than Rivals. Not even a question. The one area, and this is what I'm going to end the video on, the one area which Rivals excelled at that this game couldn't even come close to, is the high stakes and the cops. No one likes to mention this for some reason, but even though this is supposed to be underground street racing, the cops are brain dead. Now, it's not that people don't like to mention the fact the cops are brain dead, but it's people don't really like to mention the fact that Rivals cops were heads and shoulders better than this. Yes, they wanted to kill you at every single turn, and that was a problem. Even if you were AFK, the cops would still come after you. And yes, this is a huge problem. But this is the complete opposite of Rivals, where the cops won't even chase you, like, even if you want them to chase you. And that, for me, is the one place which Rivals stands head and shoulders higher than this game. I think Rivals as a whole was a lot more of a challenge in that regard in terms of high stakes. Prestige mode racing, etc., not as much, but definitely with the kind of high stakes cop stuff, they really dropped the ball on 2015, and they kind of know that as well. I think that's one of the reasons why they're going to go so in with cops in the next game. You know, we haven't seen any cop gameplay yet, but rest assured you, when they actually do show that, it's not going to be as weak as it is now currently in 2015. And that's it really. If I want to summarize everything as a whole, that's pretty much it. Overall for me, 2015 was a success because of where it came from. This series as a whole has gone through many identity changes, and I think where it's at now is exactly where it needs to be. And I think 2015 kind of stands for that change. 2015 is the start of the kind of return of Need for Speed, in my opinion. And that's pretty much all I have to say for the conversation, really. Let me know, do you guys agree, do you not agree? Let me know down in the comment section down below. That's been it from me today. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure to go ahead and hit the like, subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one. You guys have an awesome, stay safe, and peace.